host, Bad Takes, with Bad Takes in Football, back with another episode for you. We're at episode 20 of Bad Takes in Football. We do live streams every Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. These might be subject to change in the future. I want to see if I'm going to be able to get more people on to my live streams, maybe later on in the evening, like after dinner time, something along those lines, or maybe right after work hours. We'll take a look at that. We're going to wait a little bit longer, but while we're waiting, when you come in here, please, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'm on my road to my first 100 subscribers. We're more than halfway there. We're making some really good progress, which is really exciting. But again, every subscription really helps. Also, make sure you like this live stream. It helps other people find this. And also comment. I put in chat, a prompted question, tell me who your favorite team is, and also are there any teams that you feel like are in a must-win situation? We'll go over those matchups this week, but again, make sure you like, make sure you comment, be active in chat. I want to be able to hear your takes. We can disagree, it can be fun. I'm not here to just tell you everything about how I feel. I can definitely do that, but again, it's more fun if you are obviously participating, so feel free to chat, feel free to comment. Tell me what you think about my takes, tell me your takes, any games you're excited about. So we'll hop into that shortly. I think we're dealing with a little bit of echo here. Let me just test this out real fast. Testing. Let's make sure my audio is right. One second here. All right, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, we should be all set. So, like I said, we're going to be diving into this week's matchups. The first game we're going to be going over today is the Thursday Night Football game. This is the game between the Miami Dolphins are traveling to the Buffalo Bills. Now, again, this is week 3, but something that's really just right off the bat, something I'm thinking about when I think about this game is this might be one of the most must-win games that Tua has had in his career. I'm not saying to save, the season and his career necessarily, but the Miami Dolphins, first off, just have this really bad confidence issue right now. It's very obvious to me that from a cohesiveness perspective, they're just not there as a team. They were really close, and they played much better in last week's game against the New England Patriots. They had a really good chance of actually winning that game. There were some unfortunate things that happened, mainly Devon Achane. He had a great catch and run for what seemed to be a touchdown at first, but was called back because of a foot being out of bounds. And something else that happened in that game that, really just concerns me is just the body language and overall reaction of Tyreek Hill on the sidelines during the end of that game last game. He was throwing an absolute fit out there. He was clearly unhappy. They kept re-showing this one play of Tua essentially overthrowing Tyreek, which, in fairness to Tua, that's really easy to do because Tyreek is about 5'10", and is not known for his jumping abilities necessarily. He's a speedster and he's quick, but he wasn't able to go up and get this catch. And, after the fact, you could just tell how frustrated Tyreek was. And so, for me, no, I don't think the Miami Dolphins are a playoff team this year. No, I don't think they had any shot at a Super Bowl. But from just an overall team perspective in this organization, they need this win really bad. Unfortunately for them, they are traveling to probably the last team they want to see right now in the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen in this Buffalo Bills team has to have the utmost confidence after one coming back and beating the Baltimore Ravens in week 1 and then just completely manhandling the New York Jets last weekend. Josh Allen, he broke his nose. He looks like he's got some work he needs to do on that. Apparently, he's going to be wearing a visor to protect his nose. But nonetheless, they just look like such a solid team right now. They look like a team that is the exact opposite of the Dolphins in the sense that the Bills are a very cohesive team. They have a great culture, a great locker room, awesome leadership, and they're playing another home game in Buffalo, which is not an easy place to go visit. And so for this Miami Dolphins team, I was trying to think about what this really seems like to me, and I just kept thinking like they're that couple that's about to break up and they thought a vacation was going to save them. And they're like, hey, let's go travel somewhere. And the issue is they both hate the cold and they're going to Alaska. Like that's really the only way I can put the situation for the Miami Dolphins going to Buffalo to play the Bills this week. It is a divisional game and you're 0-2, 0-1 in the division, and you have to go on the road to play probably the best team in the AFC right now, if not the second best team in the AFC behind the Chargers. That's just a really tough task for me. I struggle to think about how they're going to be able to make this work. And for me, the biggest factor in what needs to happen for the Dolphins to be successful is Devon Achane really needs to have a career game in this game. The Bills have shown they've struggled against the run against the Ravens. They definitely changed that up and did a great job against Breece Hall and the Jets. But at the same time, they do have a lack of strength, I would say, and really just like weight at the front of their defense. Their defensive line is fast, it's strong, but it's just not a big line. And so they can get pushed around if they find themselves in a heavyweight battle. They really can. And so for me, Devon Achane needs to have an amazing game on the ground and also in the air. Tyreek, he got back on track. He had a 100-plus yard game last week against the Patriots. Waddle, had a pretty solid game as well. He had somewhere around 50 yards and a touchdown, I believe. But for me, Devon Achane is going to be the key to this game because I don't think you can put this game on Tua. I really don't. Tua, if he can minimize his mistakes and throw some solid down the field balls to open up the run game for the Dolphins, that's going to be your best chance. That's really the only way I could potentially see the Dolphins, really having a decent opportunity to win this game. Now, again, there is always that any given Sunday, and maybe the Bills come out and they're not really thinking the Dolphins are going to be a tough task, and so they kind of get walked on. I don't think that's the case. They're a very, I would say, mature team. They're a very veteran team that knows you have to win week in, week out, and they're already battling for like playoff seeding, right? They want to get as much of a home field advantage as possible. They have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL, and they're already a top team regardless. And so for me, this is a team that you're just going up against a hacksaw when you're going up against the Buffalo Bills. And so when I think about where I expect this game to go, I think that the Bills are going to win this game, and I think they're going to win this game pretty easily. I expect the score to be 28-17, and most of those touchdowns are going to be coming from Devon Achane on the Miami Dolphins side of the ball. Now, I didn't talk too much about the Bills team. I don't really feel like I need to. Josh Allen, again, is playing at such a high level. He didn't have like the stats to really prove that against the Jets, but he also just didn't need it, right? That was the huge aspect of that game, is he didn't have to be spectacular to win that game. They're just such a good team overall, and they did such a good job of shutting down the Jets on offense that the Bills offense didn't really have to do that much. And so again, for me, I think the Bills are going to win this game 28-17, and you're going to start to hear more murmurs about Mike McDaniel and the future of this Dolphins team and whether or not they can keep the makeup of what the team they have right now, which to me is very heavy on skill players, but they're very much lacking on the offensive and defensive line side, and also I would say their secondary is lacking as well. So again, this is not going to be a good game, I don't think, for the Dolphins. I'm concerned about what they're going to be looking like after this week. But Thursday night, they do have a short week. Maybe they can surprise the Bills, but again, I don't expect that to happen. Again, when you do enter here, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Again, I'm on my road to my first 100 subscribers. It really helps me out. It's free for you to do. I'm also doing a giveaway. We're doing a portable Bluetooth speaker that breaks up into two parts so you can have multiple speakers or just one. It's a really cool prize. Again, going to be giving that out to one of my subscribers. So when you do enter in here, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Also, chat. Tell me what games you're most excited about. Very interested to hear any games that I might be overlooking. Next game we're going to talk about is the Packers versus the Browns. Now, this game has upset not written all over it. Just being completely honest, I just can't picture a world where the Browns offense, who has struggled against the Cincinnati Bengals, and then a Baltimore Ravens defense who struggled against the Bills, I just don't find a way for this Bills team or this Browns team to score many points at all against the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, take their offense out of this, right? Just take their offense out. They're still an amazing team just with this defense. They made the Detroit Lions, who put up 52 against the Bears, they made the Lions offense look mediocre at best. They made Jaden Daniels run for his life last week. And so for me, I'm just looking at this game. You got an older quarterback. You have a rookie running back who I'll say this. I'm impressed and I'm amazed how much Judkins was allowed or able to play in that Cleveland Browns Ravens game. So you have this rookie running back who's still probably trying to figure out the playbook. And then your biggest threat down the field is Jerry Jeudy, who I don't think anyone is really necessarily that actual concerned about. Right? He's a solid receiver, but no one's marking Jerry Jeudy down on their calendar and saying, I can't wait until I play Jerry Jeudy. This is going to be my toughest matchup of the year as a cornerback. That's just not going to happen. The Browns' offensive line is also struggling as well. Joe Flacco is I wouldn't say running for his life regularly, but he's not a mobile quarterback anymore. And the Packers pass rush that they have currently, i.e. Micah Parsons and crew, is a scary group. Like, they are getting after the quarterback. I mentioned already, Jaden Daniels was running for his life last week. Joe Flacco is going to be doing the same exact thing. This might actually be the first game where we might see one of those rookie quarterbacks for the Browns. I really do think that. Not because Joe Flacco is going to get injured. I think it's going to be because the Green Bay Packers are going to absolutely blow out this Browns team in Cleveland. You're going to be looking at a Myles Garrett who took the money at the beginning of this year. He had requested a trade. He took that money. He said, thank you very much for the $40 million a year. We're going to really see how much that money buys happiness, because he was embarrassed after the Baltimore Ravens game. Just wait to see what happens after this Packers game. They don't even have like the crazy offense that the Ravens do, but I think the Packers defense is going to put the Packers offense in scoring range a lot. I expect a lot of turnovers. I expect 3 and outs by the Browns, and I expect Jordan Love to not have a high stat sort of game, but he's going to have a fair amount of touchdown passes. I would expect Josh Jacobs to have some touchdowns as well. The Browns defense is also good, right? I'm not going to discount that. Myles Garrett, I think, will cause problems for any left tackle in the NFL, and that's really seemingly the only hope for the Browns in this game. The Browns would win this game if Myles Garrett had 2 strip sacks. That'll be my prediction. If Myles Garrett gets 2 strip sacks in this game, the Browns actually have a chance at this game. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I really don't. So in this game, when I'm looking at what I expect from a scoring perspective, again, I think it's going to be a 24-9 game. I think the Browns are going to be happy to get 3 field goals in this game, because I just don't see how they're going to be able to move the ball down the field. It's going to have to be from turnovers. And that's why I said the Browns will have a chance if Myles Garrett gets 2 strip sacks in this game. Let's go into this next game. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts traveling to the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is an interesting game for me purely because I'm so happy for Daniel Jones. First off, I made a video about these quarterbacks in new environments that are starting to succeed, i.e. the Daniel Joneses of the world. Sam Darnold experienced this last year. Geno Smith did as well in Seattle, right? So I love the fact that Daniel Jones, first off, we need to start the trend. Indiana Jones. I know I'm not the first to say it, but we just got to call him Indiana Jones because that is who this guy is. He seems to have a newfound excitement and just love for the game. I was watching the end of that Broncos game, and Daniel Jones is not someone to necessarily show emotions, but you could see on his face just the level of excitement and just pride he had. It can't be easy to be a quarterback in New York, first off, and then not only be that quarterback, you get a contract, you play 1 year under that contract before you get cut, right? That cannot be easy. The amount of just overall, I'll call them insults, the amount of people talking about his game and how he is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then you battle Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, who everyone was not necessarily caring about that battle, right? No one was looking at that battle and saying, both of these quarterbacks are really good. It's like, hey, which one's the lesser of the evils? That's how people were really looking at that. And so for me, Daniel Jones just completely turned a leaf in this season. He's second in the league in passing yards. He has just under 600 passing yards. So he's averaging 294 yards on in the air. He has 2 touchdowns and he has no interceptions. That's not just game management. That's a game-winning quarterback right there. And that's how they're able to beat the Broncos. And I'll stop talking about that because the other aspect of this game is the fact that the Tennessee Titans are 0-2. So you have the 2-0 Indianapolis Colts traveling to Tennessee to play the rookie quarterback, Cam Ward, who I was looking at the numbers. First off, the guy just doesn't get any help from the receiving perspective. But I was also looking at the amount of times he's been sacked. He's been sacked 11 times already. That is not good. A lot of people are in the media are talking about how dangerous it is to be the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback. Joe Burrow just continuously getting injured. Cam Ward has been sacked 5 more times than Joe Burrow has. Now, again, he doesn't have the help from the offensive side when it comes to receivers. But Tony Pollard has been playing really well for the Tennessee Titans. I will say that I'm actually extremely impressed with how well Tony Pollard has been playing. To me, he was someone that outperformed Ezekiel Elliott, who was on the way out. Ezekiel Elliott lost his ability at that point. He was not the same running back, and so Tony Pollard had outperformed him, and he won out that battle in Dallas. And then he got his opportunity. He got his free agent contract in Tennessee. And I didn't really know what to expect from him, and he's been consistent, right? I know this isn't his first year, but he's been consistent. And, he had a 100-yard game last week. When you pull up the numbers and you look at what Tony Pollard's doing, first off, he's 6th in the league right now in rushing, right? He's 6th in the league. That's not bad at all. When you look at the breakdown by game, when we pop into here, let's see here, last game. 1 second. Let me hop in here real fast. I'm going to take a look at this, what his stats specifically for last week. So he didn't run quite for 100 yards. He carried the ball 20 times for 92 yards in last week's game against the Rams, who have a really good defense. Right? That's not easy to do. And so I am pleased with what Tony Pollard is doing, but you cannot count on Calvin Ridley to be the number one receiver. You just can't. And so I don't really know what sort of options the Titans have right now, whether it's maybe finding some veteran receiver that's on the couch right now, or they just double down on the run game. But I just don't know how the Titans are going to win games with this sort of offense. Cam Ward does continuously try. He gives his receivers opportunities. And so the best thing you can do is just hope that these receivers turn a leaf and start catching the ball regularly. That's really the best thing you can do. And so after seeing what Daniel Jones has done these last couple of games, the stat I'm most impressed with is the fact that he's throwing the ball a lot, but he has a 71% completion percentage. Like, he threw the ball 32 times against the Broncos. It wasn't like it was some small number, and so it was easy to get that sort of percentage. He threw the ball over 30 times against the Broncos defense. That's probably the best secondary in the NFL. And so I'm looking at that. I'm also looking at the fact that Jonathan Taylor, I've talked about Tony Pollard. Jonathan Taylor is leading the league in rushing right now by 20 yards. Jonathan Taylor, people forget about him at times because of the fact that the Colts haven't been as relevant in the past. But I think we're going to be talking a lot more about Jonathan Taylor this year. Again, he had 165 yards last week, and it was in a very crucial game. I know that Josh Simmons on the Titans side is probably gearing up to try to stop him, but just watching the Colts' last two games, I'm going to go based off of that confidence level. I'm going to go based off of the experience that this Colts team has, because they do have some veteran leadership out there. Their offensive line is extremely stout. And so for me, when I look at this game and where I see this game going, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I'm not expecting Daniel Jones to have the same game he has had the last two games. I think it's going to get dialed down a little bit. I think that the Titans are actually going to game plan against the pass of the Colts. And I expect this to be a close one, but I expect the Colts to win this game 20-17, which would mean the Titans are going to start out 0-3, and the Colts are going to be 3-0 in the AFC South with seemingly no one else around them. Because you also have the Texans and the Jags, who both are struggling at this point, and we'll talk more about them in a little bit. But that's really where I see this Titans-Colts game is. I think the Colts are just the better team right now. They seem to be meshing. They seem to be gelling. I would love to see a Titans win, though. I would love to see Cam Ward get his first win. That's a huge mile marker for a player, and you don't want it to take too long, right? That just makes it even harder on him, and you wouldn't want that for him. So I hope the Titans win, but I just see the Colts winning this game in a close one on the road, 20-17. Next game we're going to get into. This game, I don't know how I feel about this game. It's a weird one. I'm talking about the Bengals versus the Vikings. And the reason why I feel weird about this game is because we're going to see two backup quarterbacks as the starters in this game. Jake Browning will be starting for the Bengals, and we're going to see Carson Wentz out there starting for the Vikings. Carson Wentz hasn't started a game since 2023. It's the same thing with Jake Browning. Now, Jake Browning did get to play last week against the Jaguars, but what I can tell you is I wasn't impressed with him. He did what he needed to do to win the game, but he also threw 3 interceptions. I said it yesterday, he did everything he could to lose that game, but he also did everything he could to win that game. It was just extremely inconsistent. The good news for him is the fact that he still has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins out there. Whenever you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as your receivers, I don't care who you are at quarterback, you're going to have a chance to put points on the board. Now, on the other side, Carson Wentz, he was a guy that was an MVP caliber quarterback and just really quickly fell off after that. I think a lot of that had to do with injuries. And then he just lost confidence because he lost his job in Philadelphia. And he just never really regained that back. He played briefly for the Commanders. This was when the Commanders didn't have Jaden Daniels. They had, and it was just essentially Terry McLaurin was the entire offense of the Washington Commanders at that time. But I don't expect much out of this game. Just full transparency. I don't think this is going to be a game where it's going to be a must-watch situation. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes from both sides of the ball. Carson Wentz is not someone to be afraid of throwing the ball down the field into double coverage. And Jake Browning has proven that he's done the same. You know, I heard him after the game. He talked about how emotionally exhausted he was because he wasn't expected to have to play today. You know, he does have a week to actually prepare this time, but still at the same time, I don't have confidence in either one of these teams. I don't have confidence in either one of these quarterbacks. I really don't. You know, I think it's going to come down to which quarterback has the least amount of turnovers. Which team turns the ball over the least? That's really going to be the deciding factor. Just because the Vikings are at home, I think I'm going to have the Vikings win this game. That's literally the only way that I can tell one way or the other. Because I don't know what to make of Jake Browning. I think he's a good backup, and I like his weapons. And I have no clue what to expect out of Carson Wentz. But I just think that the crowd, the environment, the Vikings defense, I see Kevin O'Connell dialing up a great game plan. It's probably going to be very simple, but I see him dialing up a great game plan for Carson Wentz. And I see them winning this game 23-20. I think there's going to be a fair amount of field goals, and I think it's going to be a messy game, but I see the Vikings winning this game 23-20. Next thing we're going to get into is the Steelers versus the Patriots. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are traveling to New England. I actually expect this to be one of the better games of the week. And I say this for a couple of reasons. One, I think that the Patriots offense is actually probably better than the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, but I think the Steelers defense is better than the Patriots defense. I think the matchup that you have between Drake May and this very veteran defense is going to be a very challenging one for Drake May, especially with the fact that they've really struggled to get the run game going. I didn't expect that from Mike Vrabel in a Mike Vrabel offense is to not be able to establish the run yet. But we haven't seen what we've wanted to see out of TreVeyon Henderson. I know for myself I haven't. I thought TreVeyon Henderson was going to hit the ground running this year and be one of the top running backs in the league. He just hasn't been able to do that. Ramondre Stevenson said, hey, guys, don't forget about me. And he actually had a pretty good game last week, both in the run and in the pass. But it still wasn't insane numbers. I think he probably ran for something around 70 yards last week. So, again, not super dominant. And, you know, the Steelers, these are the types of games the Steelers need to win in order to stay and be in playoff contention. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One, mostly just being the fact that this AFC North is going to be a really crowded one at the top. If Jake Browning is able to keep this Bengals team afloat, you have the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Ravens that are going to be competing for two playoff spots probably. Maybe even just one, depending on what happens in the AFC West. But I didn't like what I had to see out of that Steelers offense last week against the Seahawks. That was a home game against a team traveling from the West Coast, and you looked flat. Like, there was no one moving the ball down the field besides Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is the top receiver right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers as their running back. You need DK Metcalf to be more consistent. You need him to be getting more catches and having a bigger impact on this team because that's all you have from a receiving core. Otherwise, it's tight ends and Jaylen Warren. It's Pat Freiermuth and it's Jonnu Smith and it's Jaylen Warren. And I don't even think Jaylen Warren is that good of a player. I'm just going to be completely honest. I think he's a solid running back, but he's not a top 10 running back in this league by any means. Not even close. And so I just don't have confidence in this Steelers offense whatsoever. Aaron Rodgers has been getting sacked a lot too. He's been sacked 7 times so far this year, and he's older. Those bumps and bruises, they're going to start counting up. He's not going to be as mobile. He's going to have soreness in places, and he's going to have to fight through that. And I think this is a game where, again, Vrabel's going to dial up some pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He's going to want to make it so he can't throw the ball down the field deep. He's going to say, hey, beat me short. Now, a good news for the Steelers is the fact that it doesn't seem like Gonzalez, the star cornerback for the Patriots, is going to be ready anytime soon. They were hoping that he was going to be back sooner, but it sounds to me like that Gonzalez is probably going to be out for at least another week, potentially even 2. And so I think that's going to be a huge factor in this game. For me, the other aspect is, what is Tomlin going to game plan for Drake May? I mean, Tomlin is also really good at facing other quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks. And so what is he going to dial up? I expect a lot of pressure on Drake May in this game as well. I think both of these defenses are going to try to get after the quarterback because both teams are struggling in the run. And so they're going to say, hey, beat us on the ground. And so I think this is going to be another game where you're going to see relatively a lower scoring game. I think, originally I had this game. I thought that this, the Patriots would pull out a win like 21 to 20. While I'm talking about this, while I'm thinking about this, I think it's going to be I think this is going to be like one of those 17-14 games. I'll still take the Patriots, but I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. I think it's going to be just one in the trenches. And I think that I trust the Patriots run game a little bit more than the Steelers run game in this situation. So I'm going to go 17-14. The Patriots win this game in New England. All right. Another really good game. This is another good game we're about to go over. I'm talking about the Rams versus the Eagles. These are 2 playoff games, or 2 playoff teams, right? I keep saying this, as long as Matt Stafford's back is healthy, the Rams are a really good team. They truly are. And so, generally I never have good feelings also, and I've talked about this before. I never have good feelings about West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast for early games. This is a 1 o'clock game. I was checking to make sure it wasn't a 4 o'clock game. I thought it was a 1 o'clock game. It is a 1 o'clock Eastern time game. And for me, that causes a lot of problems and challenges for the Rams because you're just playing at a completely different time of day. Your schedule's just all out of whack. And mentally and physically, generally your body knows when to be ready for things. And you're going to have to get your body a little bit earlier, up a little bit earlier. You're going to have to get your mental up a little bit earlier in order to be prepared for this game. Now, on the other side of this, I know there's a lot of people talking about the Eagles and how good this team is, and they are a very good team. Do not get me wrong. What I'm about to say, it is a slight, but I'm still saying this, they are a very good team. They're one of the best teams in the NFL, not just the NFC. But with that being said, I am watching a terrible offense. The Philadelphia Eagles offense is not good. It is essentially Saquon Barkley. It's the same as what the Falcons looked like against the Vikings with Bijan Robinson. The entire offense for the Eagles is Saquon Barkley and the tush push. I'm not going to get into the tush push stuff. Everyone has talked about that ad nauseum. I think it's a dumb play. It is what it is. But again, Jalen Hurts does not look good out there at quarterback. He is throwing very short passes. Essentially, I think they looked at their schedule, and what they said to themselves was, we don't have to throw the ball for the first 2 weeks. We can win this just purely by running the ball. I'm very curious to see if that changes in this game because you're watching a team where A.J. Brown, considered one of the top receivers in this league, has 40 yards total in the first 2 games. That's terrible. He's going to start getting frustrated. He's already even come out and said this before. The Eagles won the Super Bowl, and 2 days later, he was like, yeah, the excitement's already worn out. That's not what I don't care about winning. I just want to win my battle. I want to win my matchup. I get happy by dominating. And so you have to watch this team, and you're like, he's gonna bring 2 books out there because they don't even use their receiving core. It is literally Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts running. That has been their offense the first 2 weeks. Devontae Smith, he had a really solid catch to seal the deal against the Chiefs. But again, they have not had a passing game. I feel like I'm watching a JV offense out there. And again, I say this with all due respect because they are a good team, but watching this Eagles team is so boring. Again, I feel like I'm at a JV football game. Like, again, a dominant JV football team, but at the same time, it's just so boring. They don't have any sort of cohesiveness in the pass game. And you have to wonder, how long is it going to take to get that going? Because it's clear to me they don't have it going yet. They haven't necessarily tried that hard, I'll say that much. But at the same time, like Chris Jones said, he's like, you didn't even have a 100-yard game. He said that to Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts was like, yeah, but we won. You're not wrong. But at the same time, you are just so boring to watch. And I think the Rams are the team where you're going to have to pass the ball against because their offense is that much more explosive. And they also have a really good defense. Their defense is young, it's fast, it's relentless. And they're going to get after Jalen Hurts, and they're going to stop Saquon Barkley more often than not. I would put this Rams defense above the Chiefs defense, especially from a run game perspective. And again, I would expect the Eagles are going to have to pass the ball in this game. There's no chance that they will win this game the way they've won the last 2 weeks. It's just not going to happen. And so I think this is going to be the first game where we actually see a high-scoring game for the Eagles. I also am going to put my money on the fact that I think Stafford is in much more of mid-season form. Their offense seems to be much more in sync, and they've been doing it. And so I actually don't have confidence in the Eagles this week. I think the Rams on the road in Philadelphia are actually going to win this game. I think the Rams will win this game 24-20. You can call it an upset if you want. I don't really necessarily see if that's the case. But again, I just don't trust the Eagles offense quite yet. And the Eagles defense, it is really solid, but I still think the Rams offense is good enough to put up 24 points on them. And I just don't trust Jalen Hurts to put up more than 20. I really don't. I don't know. Does anyone have any opinions on that game? Anyone feel like the Eagles are going to come out and just throw the ball all over the Rams? Am I crazy? Because I don't see that happening. Let's hop into the next game. We're going to be talking about the Jets versus the Buccaneers. Now, first things first about this game, it doesn't seem like we're going to be seeing Justin Fields out there. Justin Fields got into concussion protocol from last week's game, and all signs lead to Tyrod Taylor being the starter for the Jets. Now, on the other side of the ball, the Buccaneers are just more and more injured. You know, they lost an edge rusher to a torn pectoral after the game against the Falcons, and for me, I'm still betting on the Bucs in this game. I think the Bucs I think they're a lot better than most people are saying about them. I think they're a top 4 NFC team right now. My top 4 NFC teams would actually, I'll say 5. I'll go 5 because my top 5 NFC teams would be the Packers, the Lions. It would probably then be the Rams, the Eagles, and then I would probably put the Buccaneers at 5. I really do think they're that good. Baker Mayfield just seems to be on a mission. Not a lot of people were talking about the fact that they felt pissed about the fact that they hadn't in their minds an early exit from the playoffs last year. Like, they're on a revenge series as well, and I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Baker Mayfield. Emeka Egbuka, he seems to have some sort of hip injury that scares me, but you still have Mike Evans out there. They have a chance to get Tristan Wirfs back in this game as well, which would be huge because the Jets have a really good defensive line. Their edge rush, their pass rush is very solid on all aspects. And so they're going to want Tristan Wirfs back. I heard he practiced late last week. So chances are there's a good chance he can play in this week's game. And so that's going to be a huge aspect for me. But again, I have too much confidence in the Bucs right now. I think they're just such a good team. They have that confidence. They have that juice. And I see them winning this game. I see them winning pretty big just because I don't think the Jets offense is going to be able to move the ball that well. Sorry, Tyrod Taylor. I expect that the Buccaneers will win this game 27-14. So I think it's going to be a pretty good beating. Let's dive into the next game on the slate. This is, I believe, the last 1 o'clock game. Oh, no, there's a couple more. But let's talk about the Raiders and the Commanders really fast. First off, the Commanders are coming off of a tough loss against the Green Bay Packers. They've also had a fair amount of time. They've had a fair amount of rest after that. I hate the fact that they lost Austin Eckler in that game. Austin Eckler has been a great professional. He's been a great teammate to many. I always thought he was an exciting running back to watch, but he tore his Achilles at the age of 31. You just got to wonder, how much he's going to have less in the tank. I hope he comes back. I'm just afraid that that's not going to be the case. We might have seen the last of Austin Eckler in the NFL, sadly. So a big thing for me in this game is going to be, what does Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt look like? And then also Gonzalez, right? That's going to be the tandem back there, in my opinion, is Krosky-Merritt and Gonzalez. And so what does that group look like back there? And also, does Jaden Daniels bounce back? Again, against the Packers, he was running for his life that entire game. He really was. And so for me, he's going up against a much lesser team than the Packers, right? The Raiders, they're a solid team, and I love Max Crosby, but Max Crosby is really the best chance for this Raiders team in this game. Similar to what I was saying about Myles Garrett, if Max Crosby is able to cause havoc in the backfield for the Commanders, which don't have a really good offensive line, I'll say that. Their tackle, especially their rookie tackle, has struggled. And so if Max Crosby is able to cause trouble for Jaden Daniels, that's going to be the best chance for this Raiders team. But also, again, off of a longer, call it like a half bye week, they do need to get McLaurin and Deebo Samuel on the field and being cohesive on the field at the same time. We haven't seen that yet for the Commanders. And going into a Week 3 game, you expect to start to see signs of that. You've had enough time for them to be working together to understand what works well, what routes they like running, what it looks like together, right? So this is a game where I do see that starting to fall more in line, because we haven't really seen that quite yet. And so for me, again, the Raiders need to make Daniels uncomfortable, but other than that, I do see this being a Commanders win. I see them winning this game 21-17, and I see the Raiders getting a couple of those points in garbage time. I think that the Commanders are going to be able to handle the Raiders better than that. So I do expect this game in Washington to be 21-17 Commanders. Let's talk about a huge divisional game with major playoff implications. Now, I'm kidding, somewhat kidding, but I am talking about the Falcons are traveling to Carolina to play the Panthers. Now, the Panthers are a team, I've said this before, that had so much momentum going into this season. And after watching their first two games against the Jags and against the Cardinals, I feel like I'm watching a rerun of last year, where it just took Bryce Young way too long to get up and running and just didn't have the confidence. Like, I know he's not getting benched, right? I don't think people are sitting here saying like Bryce Young needs to be benched like they were last week, or last year, I should say. But at the same time, he has not looked good out there. If you want to talk about his garbage time points, go ahead. Like, he was playing against a prevent defense, and everyone on the Cardinals side had essentially given up on the defensive side because they were up to 27-3. Again, he made it 22-27, but once the Cardinals were like, "Oh, we actually need to play defense," they stopped him, right? And so again, like, he did well against a prevent defense. In fairness to him, I will say this: Xavier Legette is an absolute liability out there. Xavier Legette looks terrible. I don't know what the Panthers are going to do with him, because they did spend, a high draft pick on him last year. They let Thielen go, and Coker's injured. So you need to count on someone like Legette to be the guy. To me, it's Tet McMillan. Tet McMillan had a great game against the Cardinals. He looks like a wide receiver one. But then after that, you're really just counting on the other wide receiving core to really work out. I don't think it's gonna be Xavier Legette. For me, you're really hoping Hunter Renfro is the guy, because again, Xavier Legette is not. Xavier Legette is just, he looks terrible. It doesn't even look like he's trying. Like, that's the other part. Is like, it's not even like he's like trying hard and making mistakes. He looks like he's not even trying out there. It looks like he's like, oh yeah, I got to play football. Like, let me go do that real fast before I can go back on my horse farm and ride horses all day, because it doesn't look like he cares out there. On the other side of things, Michael Penix, he had a really bad game in my opinion against the Vikings. Like, that Vikings game, I thought I was just watching two really young quarterbacks. There was no offense in that game besides Bijan Robinson. Unfortunately for the Panthers' pass or rushing defense is not good. And so the Falcons, all they need in this game is Bijan Robinson. I do think they're going to still be passing the ball down the field a fair amount from the Falcons' perspective. And I expect Penix to have a much better showing than he did against the Vikings. I think that the Falcons are going to win this game 24-17. And this is going to be another game where I think it's not going to be that close. I expect there to be some garbage points for the Panthers again to make it seem a little bit closer. But I expect this score to be 24-17 Falcons over the Panthers. Let's talk about the Texans versus the Jaguars, the bottom of the barrel of the AFC South. Let's go, right? Everyone's excited about this game. If you don't have the Texans-Jaguars game marked on your calendar, what are you doing in your life? Both of these teams looked bad last week. CJ Stroud, I don't know what's going on with you. You had a rough sophomore slump. Everyone has talked about his sophomore slump. He wasn't as bad as what people were necessarily saying. They still made the playoffs. Again, that was also with the AFC South just being absolutely abysmal last year. But I just don't know what to think of CJ Stroud after these first two starts this year. His offensive line is also bad. They revamped it, and it looks like they didn't need to do any changes. They should have just kept it the same thing and would have been fine, or would have been the exact same thing. But I don't have confidence in CJ Stroud anymore. I really don't. I feel like I'm watching a quarterback that, when people didn't have tape on him, he was able to exploit things, but now people know his tendencies. They know how he likes to operate. And unless one of his receivers isn't able to make a play, he's not making the plays for them. I can tell you that much. CJ Stroud isn't winning the game for the Texans anymore. And on the same side, I don't trust Trevor Lawrence. I decided after they lost to the Bengals without Joe Burrow, I was like, I can't put any vote of confidence in Trevor Lawrence anymore. He threw 3 interceptions in that game, and he's the only quarterback where the team actually wins in the turnover battle, and he threw for over 300 yards, and they still lost the game. Like, it's some historical number, but regardless, like, Trevor Lawrence, you're just not good. And the game, in order for the Jaguars to have any shot in this game, Travis Etienne is going to need to have 100 yards on the ground and maybe another 30, 40 in the air and probably multiple touchdowns. Because, again, the Texans aren't good, but neither are the Jaguars. Like, the Jaguars just look like a team that's just lost. I do like Liam Cohen. I think he's a good coach. But, again, I just don't trust Trevor Lawrence. All he does is try to force the ball down the field and just makes terrible decisions. It's like watching a rookie quarterback, but he's in, like, his 5th year. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the quarterback that I saw at Clemson and it doesn't seem like the same guy. So I don't know if there's, like, some confidence issues going on or what it is, but I just don't have any confidence in Trevor Lawrence. I think the Texans win this game. I think they finally get their first win of the year, and I think it's a 23-20 game. I think it's going to be close, but I see the Texans pulling it out. Let's talk about the Broncos and the Chargers. So first off, I'm very high on the Chargers. I think the Chargers, again, if they're not the best team in the AFC, they're the second best team in the AFC right now, between them and the Bills. Like, I really do hold the Chargers that high. if you missed my AFC West preview, I do have the Chargers winning the AFC West. That was the team I had from the beginning. I just think Jim Harbaugh, with another year with Justin Herbert, I love the receiving core that they have. I love the Amari and Hampton pickup, and I think they just have a young talent on that defense that is super valuable, right? You're not spending a lot of money on a bunch of those players, but they have the impact players, and they have the leadership of Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack did dislocate his elbow, and he's going to miss several weeks, but it is said that he's going to be playing again this year, which is, I'm happy for him. But, to me, this is going to be a game where you have a team with utmost confidence, like the Chargers, playing against the Denver Broncos, who I think they got a little bit of a slap to the face last week with the loss against the Colts. I don't think they thought they were going to lose that game. Bo Nix, he had a really solid game. J.K. Dobbins seems to be the running back one for the Broncos. He had a really solid game as well. I think he had 77 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and then I think he had somewhere close to 30 yards in the air as well. And so I'm loving what J.K. Dobbins is able to do in Denver. I think Sean Payton and Bo Nix have proven to be a solid quarterback head coach duo. I just think that the Chargers offense is still just too good for Bo Nix to be able to compete against this Chargers team. I think that's really what it comes down to is I don't know what changed my mind this year. Like, I've actually hated the people that talk so highly about Justin Herbert without him winning big games. For some reason, I just think this is Herbert's year where he breaks out of that sort of mold. And so I have the Chargers winning this game, and I think it's going to be a huge offensive game for the Chargers. The Colts proved you can throw the ball on this Broncos defense. They looked mortal. Like, I think I talked about it on Monday. Patrick Surtain had led the Broncos in tackles. That is never something you want to see, is your cornerback leading a team in tackles. That means he is picked on a bunch. That is not a good sign. Everyone's like, the 11 tackles is probably good. No, it's not. If you're a cornerback, you get 11 tackles, something really bad happened. And that's what happened last week, is the Broncos lost based off of a field goal to the Indianapolis Colts. I need to see Bo Nix win a big matchup. That's the biggest thing to me. I haven't seen Bo Nix win in a big time matchup yet. And so until that happens, I just don't trust him over Justin Herbert. I know Justin Herbert hasn't won those big matches generally. They beat the Chiefs in Brazil, which to me was a big sign and a big thing that said, hey, like, we're here to stay. He got over that hump. I have the Chargers winning this game 27-20, right? So I think the Chargers are going to end up 3-0, and the Broncos are going to be 1-2. Potentially, we'll see same record as the Chiefs. We'll get into that shortly. This next game, I'm not going to talk too much about. I'm talking about the Saints versus the Seahawks. The Saints have shown they're not a pushover, first off. I will say that. Spencer Rattler, I need to give you a little bit more credit. You are actually playing pretty well out there. I don't think there is I don't see a world where the Saints get more than 3 wins this season. I think 2 is their max in full transparency. And traveling to Seattle is not going to be one of those games where you're going to win. The Seahawks are coming off of a big win in Pittsburgh. They're going to be back home in Seattle. The 12th man is going to be loud. They were really able to run the ball well against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I expect the Seahawks team to double down on the run game. I see them running all over the Saints team. I expect the Seahawks to win this game 23-13. Next game we'll get into. This is another 4 o'clock Eastern game, or 4:25. We're talking about the Cowboys and the Bears, right? So we got 2 teams, both teams very popular in the American public eye, but also I don't know why for some reason this is the type of game. This is the upset I'm calling, right? I don't know why, but I have a Bears win written all over this. I think based off of what happened last week with the Cowboys having the excitement and the big victory over the Giants in overtime, I think they're going to have a huge hangover in this game. And I also think that the Bears are just desperate right now. One, I will say I did actually like the poise that Caleb Williams had in his press conference. He actually seemed like someone that was focused and actually really cared. That's the best I can say about it. But I think Ben Johnson is going to be working day and night to create the most immaculate, amazing offensive game plan that is going to be foolproof for Caleb Williams in order to win this game because they have the weapons. They do. They have Rome Odunze, they have DJ Moore. They need to start using their younger talent in Luther Burden and also Loveland, right? They need to figure out how to use Loveland more because I'm not seeing him out there. And so again, this is a game I'm watching. It's what does Ben Johnson do to prepare for this game? Because again, Caleb Williams, when he's in situations where he's having to ad-lib and there isn't necessarily a solid game plan going forward, that's when you see Caleb Williams struggle. He looks like an all-pro, Pro Bowl style quarterback the first two series of a game, and it's just a completely different Caleb Williams after that. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that that first series especially is generally scripted. So if I'm Ben Johnson, like I'm scripting the entire game before the game even starts and just saying, let's hope that the Cowboys can't stop this, but this is how I would go against the Cowboys. You also know the Cowboys can't stop the pass. Russell Wilson threw for 450 yards on this Cowboys defense. Right? That is terrible statistics. I don't know if we'll see another 450-yard game this season. And the Giants did that. Essentially, it was Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors together, just doing all of it. Wan'Dale Robinson also had a great game, I will say that. But I just see this being a trap game for the Cowboys. Now, I will say I am also extremely impressed with Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, you have proved me wrong. You are still a solid running back in this league. I think Javonte Williams has proven that he has more than earned the contract he got in Dallas. Dallas has to be very happy about the move they made to get him. And so I do think that the Cowboys, again, will stay in this game and keep it competitive because they also do have a really good offense. I'm not going to take that away from them. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams, like you have good weapons. But for some reason, I just think this is the week where the Bears find a way to win. I think they're desperate, and it's just the stereotypical, like, I think this is the type of wave they bring these Bears fans on. I think, if anything, it has to do with that. It's like, how do we mess with the world more? Like, let's make the Bears win so these Bear fans have hope for, like, a week. I also think the Cowboys might be looking beyond to that Packers game next week where they're going to be facing up against their old friend Micah Parsons. That's another aspect of this, is I do think that the Cowboys could potentially be looking forward. But I have the Bears actually winning this game. Again, it's going to be an upset, but I see them winning this game 24-20. I think Caleb Williams gets a victory. You're going to start hearing Bears fans saying, "Oh my gosh, maybe we have a guy, maybe," and Ben Johnson's a genius, But that's really where I see it going. We got two more games we're going to be going over. So last game of the 4 o'clock slate, we're going to be talking about the Cardinals and the 49ers. Now, the 49ers, I think, we're lucky to have the Saints matchup be their first game where they didn't have Brock Purdy and George Kittle amongst their other injuries. But I think the Cardinals are a much better team than the Saints are. And Mac Jones, you had a great game against the Saints. Again, it was the Saints. I just don't know if I see him being able to stay consistent and stay solid as the starting quarterback in this game. For me, I think this is a game where Marvin Harrison Jr. goes off. I'm not sure why. I don't think that's me necessarily saying the 49ers defense is bad because they're top 10 right now. But at the same time, I just think this is the type of game where you see Marvin Harrison go off for over 150 yards and probably 2 touchdowns. I'm calling it now. This is going to be the game where Marvin Harrison goes off. And, again, I still see this being a solid game. Somehow I have more trust in Kyler Murray than his opposing quarterback in Mac Jones. I see the Cardinals defense making it really difficult on Mac Jones, though. I think the Cardinals defense, they have a solid rush with Josh Sweat amongst others. And so I actually see the Cardinals winning this game on the road 20-17, and the 49ers take their first loss. And we'll see what happens with the Cardinals this year. Maybe they turn things around. They beat the Panthers barely, but they were manhandling them early on. So we'll see what happens. But again, I see the Cardinals winning against the 49ers 20-17. Last game we're going to go over today. Chiefs versus the Giants in New York, Sunday Night Football. First things I'll say is I'm not sure why they decided this was a Sunday Night Football matchup. Maybe, I have no reasons other than the fact that they want to show Taylor Swift on the Jumbotron as much as possible. But, I don't think, getting into the game, I don't think this is quite the time where the Chiefs need to hit the panic button. I will say that. I don't think the Chiefs need to hit the panic button yet. There's 17 games in the season, not 16. That actually makes it a huge difference. But starting out 0-2, you lost to the Chargers, you lost to the Eagles. Both of those are top teams in the NFL right now. This is the type of game that you need to win to really get the ball rolling, because I've talked about how bad the Eagles offense looks. The Chiefs offense looks even worse. You're older. Travis Kelce, I like you. I like your leadership. I see you yelling on the sideline like, I'm sick of this shit. But at the same time, you fumble, you bobble a pass that ends up being intercepted, and that basically made that cemented that win for the Eagles. But right now, they don't have a run game. Patrick Mahomes is their leading rusher. Patrick Mahomes has 13 carries for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is unbelievable to think about. And let's look at their other rushers real quick. Yeah, this is terrible. This is so bad. Kareem Hunt is their next best rusher. He has the same amount of carries. He has 13 carries, just like Patrick Mahomes, for 47 yards. Patrick Mahomes almost has 100 more rushing yards than their next running back. And he's not even supposed to be a running quarterback. The guy just turned 30. He just had his 30th birthday after that loss to the Eagles. And they also can't pass the ball because Xavier Worthy's out. If he's able to play this week, that would be a huge difference for this Chiefs team. But Travis Kelce, generally you save him towards the end of the season. Travis Kelce, one thing I saw that was interesting, I saw the snaps. It said he was playing 80% of the snaps. I don't feel like that's actually the case. I feel like that number has to be wrong. Because every time I see Travis Kelce, if they throw him the ball, the next play he's not on the field. That guy cannot play in 2 plays back to back if he is the target. It just doesn't happen anymore. If he's the target, he's immediately off the field the next play. Every single time. And you can't have that when you are the sole weapon for this team. Because right now they just don't have anyone else. Hollywood Brown, he had a really good week 1 game. He definitely did not perform last week. He was injured actually for a fair amount of last week's game. I think he had like 99 yards in week 1. He had probably like somewhere around 30 yards last week. Their offense was absolutely abysmal and is nowhere close to what the Chiefs used to be. Now, with that being said, the Giants, they're having a little bit more confidence this week, based off of the offensive performance they had last week. Even though they lost, again, they did lose that game, against the Cowboys. Their offense looked great out there. And Malik Neighbors looks like the top receiver in the league right now. We'll see if that stays the case, right? Again, Jamar Chase to me is the de facto number 1, but Malik Neighbors is unstoppable from an offensive perspective. And so I expect Trent McDuffie to be following Malik Neighbors all over this field. I'm also really curious to see if this pass rush that I was so excited about at the beginning of the year, probably one of my worst takes was me thinking that this pass rush was going to be the best in the league. I don't know what's happening. I haven't heard Abdul Carter's name called once in the games that I watch. I think he's gotten a sack in this, but I haven't seen him have nearly the impact that I expected. For me, Brian Burns seems to be the top rusher in this backfield, or in this trio. But again, I think this is going to be a close game. Everyone say hi to Mags. Hi, Maggie. I think this is going to be a much closer game than what people think. I think this game being in New York, I think the Giants are just as desperate as the Chiefs. Both of these teams are 0-2. The Chiefs need to become 1-2 because, again, they have a really tough division. And if they want to have any shot at the division, let alone the wild card, like, you need to start piling up some wins here because it's only going to get harder and harder for you. Again, being older, those bumps and bruises come. Like, you already have injuries now. Like, it'll just keep happening. And so this is a big game for both of them. What it really just comes down to at the end is I trust Mahomes more. I think Mahomes, he is such a winner. The guy finds ways to win games no matter what. And so that for me is the reason why I'm banking on the Chiefs to win this game. I see the Chiefs winning this game 24-20. That's really where I see this game going. So, we'll see what happens from that perspective. That's the slate of games. Again, I went through the Thursday night game. I went through the Sunday slate. I'll talk about Monday's games on Monday in my live stream. Again, I go live every Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm creating content throughout the week as well. Again, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'm on my road to my first 100 subscribers. Also, like and comment. Tell me what you think about my content. Even if it's bad, tell me that. I don't care what you'd like me to change, other topics you want me to discuss. I really do appreciate everyone joining today. This is it for me from Bad Takes. This is Bad Takes in Football, signing out.